We're going to call this the June meeting of Lenoir County Board of Education to order. We recognize Mr. Harvey for the invocation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let us pray. May the words spoken in this room tonight be beneficial to the students, parents, staff, and administrators in our school system. And may we be led by the guiding principle to always base our decisions on the best interests of our young people. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Williams will present the agenda for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, tonight it's my pleasure to present to you for your consideration and hopefully approval of tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve the board agenda as presented.
Second. Motion by Mr. Hill, second by Mr. Davis. Do we have any other discussion on the agenda for this evening? And we'll call for a vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. The agenda is approved. Next item is the board chair comments. Being that this is the June meeting, I do have a few comments for our graduates. Being lucky enough to have a graduate of my own this year. It's been a very exciting time for us. I definitely want to say congratulations to the class of 2018. I've watched most of these kids since they were little toddlers, rolling into first grade, and they have become, beautiful young adults who are, have a lot of potential. The more I was thinking about the graduating class, I was thinking about my child in particular, and really the only thing that comes to my mind is I'm just really thankful that he had Lenoir County schools to go to. He spent his last 12 years here. When we started out, literally we could have sent him to any school we wanted to. Parents do have choices. Parents sitting out here know they have choices. But we decided to go with the public schools. People told us we shouldn't do that. Be honest with you. People said, hey, your child may not be safe in the public schools. I can tell you we did not have any problems with him being safe. He was safe and he was well protected in the public schools. They told us that it may hold him back from getting into a good college, that he might not get to go to the college he wanted to. Well, he's going to his first choice, which was my college, so I can't complain with that. So we're very happy with that. And since he was a boy, they told us, oh, he may not be able to play sports. There's a lot of kids, there's only a few places on the team. We haven't seen that experience either. He's played 4 different sports since he's been in high school. He's been to the state tournament in 3 different sports. He was captain of 2 teams this year. We've had a great experience, really, in our high school, and we're very thankful for that. The one thing that, though, is most important to me that I wanted to emphasize today was, he got something in public education that he could not get in a private education or somewhere else. If we had sent him to a school where everybody just looks like him and everybody comes from the same background, he just would not have had the same understanding of diversity and community that our kids get in the public school system. That has a huge value. We feel like he has benefited so much by being able to attend school with kids who were different than he is, from different backgrounds, with different family situations, different cultures and different races. Kids can read about diversity in school and they can study diversity in school, but they don't understand it unless they really experience it. And I think he was allowed to experience it in the public school system. And we were very thankful for that. As a parent, mostly what I want for my child is that he finds something that he is passionate about, which if you have boys, that's hard sometimes. They're always like, well, I don't really care. We want them to be happy and fulfilled and just do something important with their lives. Without really a public education, I know he wouldn't be the person that he is today. He wouldn't care about the things that he cares about and have the values that he has today. And we're just thankful that he is the person that he is. when I look out at our graduates, and I've been to most of the awards days, and we've got some incredible graduates at all of our schools, you know, they talk about wanting to change the world. That's what this generation talks about, making a difference and changing. That's what's important to our kids today. And I believe they really can. I believe these kids can do that. I think it's in part because the people here, the people who are here and our teachers and our staff, you've given them really a complete education. And it's not only what you've taught them in the classroom, it's what they've been able to learn from each other along the way. I especially want to thank Miss Tina Letchworth. She ended up being our principal in elementary school, and then when we went to middle school, she went to our middle school, and we went to high school, she went to our high school. Drove him crazy, but I think she was about 8 years of our 12 years of education. And also really just as on behalf of all the parents, I want to thank everybody in the public school system, the administrators, the teachers, maintenance workers, cafeteria workers. I mean, everybody comes together to make this happen for our young people. And it does make a difference. I mean, I want y'all to know what y'all do is important to our children, and you make a difference in their lives. And at graduation time, we can really see it. So I want to thank y'all for that. I will turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your kind words about the school system and about your own child's experience. And we really do have, I think we have a strong school system with a lot to offer for our students, and what our teachers and other staff members do every day is amazing in these classrooms. And if you need proof, it's right there in the classrooms for you. We invite you to our classrooms to see that day in and day out. As Mr. Sargent indicated, this is the final full week of school. We are, to use a metaphor, landing the plane, and the landing gear is down. And somebody said at an event I attended yesterday, they said to an elementary school teacher, and they say, the end's almost here, and she, the end is almost upon you. And she said, I've been knee deep in the end for over a week with the end of grade testing. They've just completed end of grade testing. Our end of course testing is going on this week in our high schools. And as you know, we have graduation on Saturday for our 3 traditional high schools. We have Learning Academy graduation this week, and we've already had the pleasure of the early college high school graduation. So our 5 high schools in total with graduation, very proud of them, but very proud of all of our kids. I want to take this opportunity, as Mr. Sargent did, to thank all of our stakeholders, whatever your role is, and I include parents in that group of stakeholders, because it takes all of us. People talk about it taking a village. Well, it takes a team. When your child is sitting at the dinner table at night, like mine is, working on 6th grade math and struggling with it and holding his head, when I walk in and I see that, and then I sit down and start helping too. We're all in this together, and we've invested in this community, and we've invested in these kids and these schools because we love it and we love them. We thank you for sharing them with us every day, and we give thanks every day also for the opportunity to be here and to serve them in our roles. So we don't take that for granted ever. So thank you for all that you are, staff members, students, parents, all the stakeholders who support this school system every day. You're going to get an opportunity tonight, and it's one of the things that I feel strongly about, but to see some of our shining stars, our students. There's no better way to show you and to convince anybody who has doubts that this school system is moving forward, and our brightest days are indeed ahead of us. No better way to see that than to look at these smiling faces and our future arrayed here before us that you'll see in these presentations. So I'm so excited about that. Tonight it is my honor to present to you some of those shining stars and those bright lights within our school system. I will ask our board chair, Mr. Sargent, and our vice chair, Mr. Hill, to assist me with presenting certificates to some of our best and our brightest. Whittington Middle School 7th grader Gracie Howard is among a select group of students recognized by the Duke University Talent Identification Program, known as TIP, for their exceptional scores on the ACT or SAT standardized test. Now, it's important for me to pause and note, we have a lot of Duke TIP kids, a lot of them in the school system. But the 2 students being honored here tonight are not just Duke TIP kids. And we honor all of them, and they well deserve those accolades. But these students were pulled out by the program, by the Duke Tip program, and they're at the very top of the top. So they were honored recently, and I'm going to tell you about that now. But I just want you to know this is differentiated from everything else. I have a Duke Tip sticker on my refrigerator at home, like many of you do. But this is the best of the best. This is even at the top of that. She was featured at the state level on May 12th with about 50 7th graders from Eastern North Carolina in a ceremony at East Carolina University, including with her Woodington classmate, Brian Villasenor. Duke Tip's 7th grade talent search identifies students from across the United States who've scored at or above the 95th percentile on a grade level standardized test. As part of the program, these academically talented students take above level college entrance exams to learn more about their abilities and to explore opportunities. Those with the very highest scores are invited to the grand recognition ceremony. And we have one of those, unless Brian came in. If he did, please let me know. But we have with us Gracie Howard, who is at Whittington Middle School. Gracie, if you would come forward, please. Let's give Gracie a round of applause. A patriotic video was created by a team of 4th grade students and teachers from Pink Hill Elementary School, and they won first place in the nation and a $2,500 prize in this national contest sponsored by Woodman Life Incorporated. The contest asked young people to complete the phrase "America is" in a video. The Pink Hill Elementary School's entry featured the school's cultural diversity and its rural roots and the success that they've achieved. Teachers involved in the video were Brenda Griffin, Selena Gray, and Jamie Finch. The 8 students who had roles in the production were Isabella Houston, Miranda Hernandez, Haley Penny, Amari Walker, Isaiah Howard, and Omar Villafranco, Paxton Wiggins, and Tamia Hooker. And at this time, we would like for the teachers and the students to come forward. And Jesse, let me say this, before you come forward, Jesse's going to cue up the video. We'll watch the video and express our appreciation for your efforts there, and then we'll have you come forward for a certificate. Thank you, Jesse.
Small town kids with really good dreams. We are just
America is abundant in freedom.
America is a mighty powerful country.
America is filled with agendas and dreamers.
America is meticulous.
America is a country of independence.
America is culturally diverse.
America is an awesome nation.
All right, I think their parents are here with them and the teachers. So as the teachers come forward and the kids come forward for certificates, parents, if you would stand and let us give you a round of applause too. Okay, this next recognition is very moving because many of the recognitions that you see don't involve a life or death situation, but this one absolutely did. One of our students, and I asked him right before this meeting started to clarify for me if he had any of the knowledge before he began the collaborative course between Lenoir County Public Schools and Lenoir Community College, and that allowed him to do what I'm about to tell you. And he said he did not, that it was all self-contained within the course. And if that's not proof positive that the collaboration is not only academically successful and beneficial for our kids in terms of course credit, but also in terms of life credit, then you'll see that here. Ackery Harrelson, a junior at North Lenoir High School, was recently presented the Heart Saver Hero Award from the American Heart Association for his efforts in assisting a classmate who was suffering a seizure during class and was choking. The American Heart Association, the national organization, has presented only 3 Heart Saver Hero Awards this year in the United States. And Ackery is one of those recipients. Ackery is enrolled in emergency medical technician training taught at North Lenoir High School by Lenoir Community College instructors George Solomon and Darla Bozeman. Mr. Solomon submitted the information that led to the award. Now, are the teachers here tonight? Mr. Solomon, Ms. Bozeman. Okay, I was going to give them an opportunity to get recognition too. Ackery, if you'd like to come forward, please. Let's give them a Ackery, not to put you on the spot, but this young man did a great job. He's become a television star. What, 3 news stories in the last 3 years? Would you like to say anything to the board and to the public about what it felt like to save that life? That was a hectic moment there. And you were able to, do you want to tell them how you were able to clear the airway?
Turn her on the side and make sure you didn't run it back if you have to. Get rid of anything that's in the throat. That's what everybody did.
For your training. And his parents are your Elizabeth Thompson, the digital learning specialist at North Lenoir High School, won a grant award worth nearly $4,900 from CenturyLink's Teachers and Technology program, one of only 18 such grants presented across the state of North Carolina. Thompson's grant will be used to purchase laptops and projectors that will enable small group instruction or the creation of what she calls mini classrooms within the overall classroom environment. Because the equipment is portable, Thompson's innovation has the potential to impact every classroom at North Lenoir High School. Ms. Thompson, thank you for going above and beyond. And when our teachers, this is exactly the embodiment of what we encourage from our teachers. They literally create additional funding for their classrooms and for their kids through extra effort and initiative. No extra compensation, just extra time, extra effort, and we appreciate you. If you'd come forward, please. We have one final honoree tonight. Ms. Jessica Scheimer, LCPS Career Development Coordinator, has been honored with one of 3 VIP awards presented by the NC HOSA, the Future Health Professionals Student Organization. The award was presented at the recent 2018 State Leadership Conference in Greensboro, North Carolina. Ms. Scheimer was nominated for the award by Crystal Peyton Demery, Health Sciences teacher at Kinston High School, in recognition of her support for the Health Sciences curriculum, its teachers, and its students. So thank you, Ms. Scheimer. If you would come forward, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report for this evening.
Next item on our agenda is public comment. And I understand we do not have anyone signed up tonight, so we'll move to the presentation portion of our agenda. The first item is the LCPS Business Advisory Council report. Be Ms. Jones. Is there detail? Doesn't tell me what the heck.
It's a grilled chicken.
Was it chicken?
I am so impressed. We can make this work. This is teamwork right here. There it is. All right, thank you. Okay, good evening. As you know, we have established this school year a Business Advisory Council as a partnership between Lenoir County Public Schools and our business community. And so you've asked to have an update on our Business Advisory Council activities, and so tonight I'm happy to provide that update for you. In your agenda, I've also attached the minutes from our 2 Business Advisory Council meetings that we've already had this school year. So you're certainly welcome to read those at your leisure. The purpose of the Business Advisory Council shall be to assist the local Board of Education in performing its duty to provide career and technical education instruction, activities, and services. And that's North Carolina General Statute 115C 172. So there are 2 objectives for the Business Advisory Council. One is to identify economic and workforce development trends related to the training and educational needs of the local community, and to advocate for strong local career and technical education programs. Of course, that includes appropriate development of career pathways, work-based learning opportunities, preparation for post-secondary educational certifications, and credentialing for high-demand careers. And so in talking with the Business Advisory Council about those objectives, I shared with them the presentation that I shared with you all during CTE month so that they would understand the things that we're doing in Lenoir County Public Schools in career and technical education. And a lot of them were pleasantly surprised by a lot of those things, so it was good. I also went and presented to the Manufacturers Association on the invitation of one of our Business Advisory Council members. And through that presentation, I had a few more people want to join the council, so that was very good. But the membership of the Business Advisory Council is specified in the general statute, and it should include the superintendent. In our district, we've chosen to include our associate superintendent and assistant superintendent as well, the president of the community college, the CTE director, one of our high school principals, and then we have to have at least 5 other members selected from local businesses, parents, or community leadership. Because we're still a new council, we are working off of a 4-group term situation, and so one of our groups has 4-year terms, one has 3-year terms, another has 2-year, and another has 1 year. Eventually, everybody will be on a 4-year term schedule as we cycle through and have gone that far down that route. So for your information, for Group 1, the 4-year term, Todd Friediger, Rosemary Jones, and Micah Farian, 2 are from Crown. Micah Farian is from Field Control. He's also the president of the Lenoir County Manufacturers Association. Our 3-year term, we have Gary Clements from LCC, Charlie Casey from the Wood Ducks, Constance Hangle from the hospital. And our 2-year term, Dust Stroud from LCC, David Pierce from LCC, and Parrish Hoffman from He's from the Masonry Association, and I'll think of his business in just a little bit. Adams Products, thank you. And our one-year term, we have Randy Grant from the construction industry and Renee Sutton also from LCC. And then you can see the ex officio members who serve. We don't have a term of service. We get to serve as long as we need to. And so we did elect officers. I have to serve as a non-voting member of the council, and so I take care of the minutes, I create the agenda, I make sure that the meeting dates are set and that we have a place to meet, and I coordinate with Charlie Casey, who's the chair of the Business Advisory Council, and he is with the Wood Ducks organization. We also can implement subcommittees as needed through the Business Advisory Council. At this point, we don't have any subcommittees, but eventually I feel like we will. So to go through some of the highlights, you can see Mr. Sainaman was showing us around the refurbished greenhouse at South Lenore High School. This year it got a new cover on it, and we've put in new cooling cells in the greenhouse. We were anxious to show our business partners what we had done in that space. So what we have done over our 2 meetings, we elected a chair, and then at our second meeting we selected the terms of office for all of our committee members. At our first meeting, we looked at the suggested bylaws for the Business Advisory Council and suggested some revisions. And then I sent those back out to the group. They reviewed them and we approved those. It's a preliminary approval of the bylaws. We had some very robust discussion about adding an LCC nurse aid course at South Lenore High School and at Kinston High School. North Lenore High School already has a nurse aid course because they have more health science instructors, but South Lenore and Kinston High School only have one health sciences instructor, and so they're not able to offer those courses to their students. So that's a possibility for the future. We also had a lengthy discussion about the need of employees in construction and masonry industries, and also as we brought on some more of the Manufacturers Association, students in manufacturing, or employees in manufacturing careers as well. It was a very good discussion. At our second meeting, we discussed an articulation agreement for early childhood education. Gary Clements from Lenore Community College was very interested in our addition of that program at Kinston High School, and so we'll be working together to develop that articulation agreement. And what that means for our students is classes that they take in high school through career and technical education can translate into exempted coursework at Lenore Community College as long as they pursue that particular pathway. So that's pretty good for our students. As you know, we're adding an automotive program at Kinston High School, and so I did invite the head of the automotive program at LCC to be part of our Business Advisory Council, and we discussed our NATEF certification, which we'll be needing to get over the next 3 years at Kinston High School. And we also discussed a training partnership with Lenore Community College based on the instructor we hire for that course. Lenore Community College is willing to allow that instructor to come in and do training with their instructors as well, so we don't have to incur that additional cost. So that's a great benefit to us. We also had discussion of a pre-apprentice program development for this district. We have some great work-based learning opportunities in Lenore County, but we'd like to take it to the next level and have some students be able to do some pre-apprentice type programs. And then finally, we did tour our South Lenore High School CTE classes, and Mr. Sainaman and his staff were absolutely wonderful. The Business Advisory Council was thrilled. They said they hadn't been in our high schools. Most of them had not been in our high schools, and so they were excited to have the opportunity, and they wanted to know when they could go to the other 2 high schools. I said, we'll do that too. But I will say from Crown, we had one of the gentlemen was an engineer with Crown, and we went into the Project Lead the Way class at South Lenore High School. And the students were presenting their final projects that they had done. They had built a solar cell phone charger and a water-powered LED flashlight, and they were presenting that, and so it was very impressive. And those are projects they didn't throw together because we were coming. Those are projects they had been working on throughout the semester, and this was their final presentation, so it was very, very good. So next steps, because of the Business Advisory Council, Crown Equipment Corporation has asked if we would like a donation of a hand blaster cleaner for automotive parts, and so we are excited to take possession of that. We will be meeting with LCC to develop the Early Childhood Articulation Agreement. And Ms. Scheimer and I are working on expanding career exploration activities in 5th grade and middle school so that more of our students are aware of the diverse opportunities that are available to them in Lenore County. We need to add a CTE parent representative or 2 to the council. And Parrish Hoffman has invited Ryan Shaver from the Masonry Association to come and discuss the pre-apprentice program that they're working on a partnership with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction to put in place in other districts around the state. And of course, if they can do it in other districts, we can do it here too. So, but we just need that support from our business community. I think one of the things that's been really exciting about the council is that at our first meeting, we were telling the business partners what we're doing in the school system, and they were telling us what they needed. But at the second meeting, there was more discussion about how we can help each other accomplish the things that we need to accomplish. And so I feel very privileged to be able to engage in those types of discussion with our community. Future meeting dates, we will meet September 18th at Kinston High School, and I hope at that time we'll have our automotive lab up and running so that they can see that. And then in February, the date to be decided, we'll meet at North Lenoir High School. We are required to meet at least 2 times per year, but we can meet more often as needed. And also our subcommittees can meet as much as they need to. Are there any questions? No? Okay.
Mr. Jones, I want to thank you for organizing that committee. You know that is a mandated committee now with required reports to the board, but it's certainly been beneficial, I think, for our district, and we've gotten some very good feedback from our business community partners. So thank you for what you're doing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Next item is the digital devices refresh summary. Mr. White.
Is the real reason I had my adapter with me. I don't just carry them around in my pocket.
Mr. White's prepared.
As Mr. White gets set up, I want to point out to you that when we began our digital journey, it took us an entire summer, and we didn't know if we could do the full implementation planning in a summer, much less do the implementation. And we've evolved in a very short time period from that scenario to not even interrupting, and some of our teachers might disagree with that statement, not substantially interrupting instruction and refreshing during a semester. So it's really quite something what they've done, and I'm sure he's going to say it's business as usual, and that's what I would expect you to say. That's great. But it's truly, I want you to understand the magnitude of what they've done, because it's tremendous to turn over thousands of devices without any substantial disruption to instruction, and to close the school year with students having new devices in their hands and rolling on with it. Mr. White.
So thank you for allowing me to come up here and just give you a little bit of information about our resale and the events that we've been doing over the last month or so. So to kind of put things in perspective, I wanted to kind of walk through our timeline of how this happened and where we were and where we ended up. So from May 7th to May 10th, we unboxed, labeled, personalized, cased, set up, and prepared 4,700 iPads for testing. Now, if you look at dates, that's 3 days, 3.5, a little under 3.5 days. The DLS team and the technicians worked tirelessly to just push these out. Our main goal throughout this whole thing was to cause as little disruption to our classrooms as possible, and to pull people as much or as little as we could. So I was pushing them, and I was pushing them hard. Following that, May 14th, our technicians went and set up the teacher devices and iPads at Rochelle. Later on that week, myself and the technology department, we delivered the new devices. At the same time we were delivering the new devices, we were picking up the old RESALE devices. During all of this time, our high school and middle school DLSs put tremendous amount of time gathering all these devices back up, hounding students to bring in their device because they keep forgetting it, or to find that charger, or to get this cable that you forgot to bring. So I cannot thank them enough. And then of course May 21st through 23rd, our reseller was on site where I went through them. We helped them boxed up, verified, and we shipped off all of our old devices. So one of the things I'm really proud of Lenore County Public Schools is what I'm about to talk about, because when we began this process, we had a tremendous amount of people that would just come up to us and say, you know, these students are going to lose the devices, they're going to steal the devices, half your devices are going to be gone. And to be honest, that just didn't happen. And we knew it wouldn't happen, but we had to prove that it wouldn't happen. Now, we did lose some devices. I'm not going to lie to you about that. I've lost devices to house fires, and I've gotten shriveled up, melted devices. I've lost devices into flood. I've had devices shattered in car crashes. I've had them stolen. I do have a few of those stolen. Anything that you can think of has happened to one of our devices in there. But overall, no matter all of that going on, the huge majority of our students took excellent care of what they had. And I cannot emphasize that enough. When we were bringing them in and our reseller was looking at them and we were taking them out of the cases and they're examining the merchandise that they have, they're extremely happy with the quality of devices that we were giving to them. Now, as you can see from our numbers up there, of the advertised amount that we sent, we collected back 98% of all of our high school devices. Middle school, 102%. Now you ask why there's 102%. I did calculate, when we advertised this, we calculated there would be some loss. I knew there would be loss. I calculated 2% at high school and 4% at middle school. But my middle school surprised me. I don't know what it is about middle schoolers, but they just can't control their hands and arms and book bags and everything else. They always have an issue. But they did surprise me, and we collected more than we thought we would. And then, of course, Rochelle came in at 99, and then 100% of their teacher devices. And I think that's huge. I mean, this explicitly says that our students, as a part of this, took care of what they had. That they brought them back in, and you know, we do have troubles with them. We have problems. We have students every day who don't bring them in, who don't bring them charged. They lose their chargers. They go buy a fake charger and try to pass it off as one of our chargers. We've had everything, but in all, our students do take care of the devices that we have. Now, one thing I do want to note is Rochelle, as a part of this resale and refresh, we twilighted the end of the Connect Ed Apple grant with Rochelle. Now what that means, we're just talking about the device end of it. So all of the devices at Rochelle were folded into this resale product and then resold with the rest of this. Now what this did is this put Rochelle on the same refresh cycle as all of our other middle schools and all of our teacher devices. You may remember last year when we refreshed our teacher devices, we were not allowed to bring in Rochelle because they were part of the grant. So this brings our teachers at Rochelle exactly with the same devices and everything else that all the students in Lenore County Public Schools has. So they are fully transitioned over. One of the things you wouldn't know, or that we noted, is ultimately we decided of the laptops that we collected from Rochelle to not turn those in. And let me explain that just a little bit. You may remember from earlier this year, Lenore County Public Schools won a grant for coding through Department of Public Instruction. Now this is a huge deal. I love this grant, I can't talk about it enough. And it's headed up through CTE with Miss Amy Jones. And ultimately, when our students start that process in middle school, they'll go through middle school and they have high school courses. At the end of their high school courses, they're learning Swift. They're learning Swift, which is the Apple programming language that is the foundation of app building. Their keystone project at the end of that is the completion and building of an app that they could potentially put on the App Store for Apple. I mean, it's a huge deal and a great start for our students. But when we looked at the total cost of what we would get in reselling and then the cost of buying new devices to start up this program for our coding, we saved a tremendous amount of money by not turning those in and then instead using those devices, which will still remain good for a few years. All right, and then just to kind of wrap it up, I just want to thank our county commissioners, you, our school board, our senior administration, just for keeping this vision going and to knowing how vital this is for the students of Lenore County Public Schools. Of course, our technology department, our technicians, from start to finish, have been nonstop in helping get these iPads set up and out. Our digital learning specialists who were really the success of this whole thing. And of course our principals, I can't thank them enough. I was constantly pulling DLSs out of the schools. Our technicians were with us, so we weren't fulfilling work orders as fast as we could. And they understood and they were with us the whole time. So I really appreciate them. And that's about it. So that's our refresh. Do you have any questions about this process?
Congratulations on the job well.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Mr. White.
Appreciate
Sounds
it.
like y'all are doing a great job. Our next item on the agenda is the virtual lab, professional development for beginning teachers. Ms. Hazelgrove, I see is here.
Mr. White is going to drive.
Mr. White is going to drive? Better for now. Mr.
Don't go
Harvey,
too far away.
you're fired. I'm getting a new driver, Mr. White.
I'm not a part of this program, but I will join them.
But you know what? He is kind of a part of this program because he has attended many, many of our immersion sessions.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, we're almost there.
Almost there.
All right. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
I spoke with you back in the fall and let you know, gave you a little bit of information about the immersion grant, immersion at East Carolina, and the virtual classroom. And so I'm here tonight to give you an update. And I think I remember some of you saying, can we visit? And you never did. So, not sure what to think about that. But hopefully, we'll get the grant again, and I'm going to hold your feet to the fire and make you come this time. So we there, Mr. White?
We are trying to get there.
Are we?
I'm a better driver.
Car's got a lot of stuff in the trunk, doesn't it?
Coach's orientation.
No, immersion. In board docs.
Mr. Harvey does have a few things to
A lot of hats. We can turn the projector off.
Well, I will tell you that it has been an experience. It has been a lot of fun. It has been, the immersion experience has been unlike anything we have ever offered before. And when we submitted the grant, it was primarily for lateral entry teachers to give them experiences that traditionally trained teachers had, that those experiences with student teaching, and our lateral entry teachers have not. So that was the reason for writing the grant. And so we have had probably about 40 teachers who've been multiple times. And Mr. White and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I brought with me, you can see, Mr. Williams said it was Shining Star Night for students. Well, it's Shining Star for beginning teachers too, because these are two of our Shining Stars, beginning teachers. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes, but I thought that really they could give you an insight that I can't, just what it was like to be on the teacher end and in the classroom. So thank you, Mr. White. You're such a good driver.
Don't say that yet.
Like I told you in the fall, immersion is an immersive learning experience that provides participants a safe space in which they can practice what they have learned in the classroom and throughout their career, with an opportunity to get direct feedback from virtual students, peers, and administrators. It has provided lateral entry beginning teachers in Lenoir County a unique opportunity to practice communication skills in a classroom environment. The group process of observing and reflecting is one of the most valuable components of this experience. And that to me was, oh, and here are some pictures, but I'll speak to the reflection portion. I would bring several teachers in at a time, and although only one teacher is teaching at the time, the other teachers are watching and offering feedback once that teacher has finished. So it was really an opportunity for the teacher who's teaching the lesson to the virtual students to reflect, and also gives those teachers that are watching an opportunity to share, well, had you thought about doing this, or in my classroom I did that, or it was just a lot of fun, wasn't it, Charles? It really was a blast. So here is one of the teachers, and you can see there's her virtual classroom in the back, and this is an elementary classroom. And we did graduate after Christmas. We now have an upper middle grades classroom. So that was really, I think, ideal for our middle school teachers and our high school teachers to have older students to teach. And here's another teacher. And so this just sort of gives you an idea of what the classroom looks like. So she's calling on a student to raise his hand, but there's some things they can't do. So a teacher would say, I want everybody, 1, 2, 3 eyes on me, and raise their hand, and they can't all raise their hand at the same time. So that there are some limitations, but they will say, there's a phrase, and it'll say, our principal says we can't do that. So if one of the students, if he says, our principal says we can't do that, then that lets us know there's something that they're not able to do. They can't stand, they can't all raise their hand at the same time, but it has been great. So the Immersion Lab is located at the Professional Development Center at Kinston High School. 40 teachers participated in multiple sessions. We have submitted a grant for next year, and those grants will be awarded mid-July. So I'm hopeful, because I know y'all all want to come next year and participate and teach a class. So Charles, we're good. And I brought with me Rashida Richardson, first-year English teacher at Kinston High School, and Justin Thigpen teaches social studies at Woodington Middle School. So I've asked them to just share with you some of their takeaways as first-year lateral entry teachers, what they thought about immersion. So, Rashida.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Rashida Richardson. I am a lateral entry teacher at Kinston High School. I teach the English class, and I just want to start off by saying that this was absolutely an amazing opportunity, even though I didn't know quite what I was getting into when I was asked to come to the Professional Development Center. I didn't really know what to make of this experience at first. The first thing I could think of is how different it was to be in this virtual classroom versus the classroom that I teach at Kinston High School. And so some of the initial feedback that I mentioned is I'm a very mobile person. When I teach, I love to walk around and have proximity with my students. And so that was a challenge, not to be able to walk up to my students, and it definitely made me appreciate the relationships that I've built with the students in my classroom. I can remember one of my first experiences was a classroom management issue where a student had a cell phone out, and we were going back and forth for 2 minutes, and I was totally unprepared because this scenario would never happen in my classroom. Everyone knows Ms. Richardson does not do cell phones in her classroom. But I think the biggest thing that I took away is the opportunity to reflect on my practice while I'm teaching. I feel that when I'm in the classroom with my students, I'm very focused on providing feedback for my students. Okay, did we get through everything we need to on the agenda? But this was really an opportunity to step back and think of, did I allow my students the opportunity to participate in the classroom? Did I make my expectations clear? Do they have all the resources they need? And so to be able to practice that in real time and reflect on that in real time has been an invaluable experience in improving my own students' experience in my classroom. So I would definitely recommend this to lateral entry teachers. I think that it is an amazing experience to be able to recognize that classrooms are different. And as a high school teacher, we switch over the semester, but just the opportunity to interact with different classrooms is not something that we get often. And so to be able to have this virtual classroom to do that in multiple sessions has really been helpful in my teaching practice.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Justin Thigpen. Like she said, teach social studies, 8th grade at Woodington Middle School. I am not a lateral entry teacher. I am classically trained at East Carolina secondary history degree. So I had clinical teaching experience coming in, but I also found it very beneficial to me because, like I told her, you know, it was a little nerve-wracking when you got into it because they weren't your kids. Because I've built a relationship with my kids. They're my kids. I step in the classroom each day. Those are my kids. So automatically I thought this would be great for someone that has never stepped into a classroom and say, this is my expectations for my classroom. And start building that relationship. A good practice to build a relationship right there day one. Because when I stepped in the classroom day one, my nerves were a little shot. I was a little scared. But here we are at the end of the school year, and these are my kids, and coming to class is just seeing my kids every day. So I thought it was a great experience, just if you haven't done it before, to get in there and you feel that experience of meeting kids for the first time. The lesson I did, I wish I had done, like I said earlier, doing my initial, this is my expectations for the class, these are the procedures we're going to do, and kind of introduce myself. Another great thing we did was the parent-teacher conference. Luckily, I've had some experience contacting parents before I did it, and I was able to take things that I've learned through building a relationship with some of my students' parents. But I could definitely, if you haven't had the opportunity to contact someone's parent before, definitely is very beneficial because as a parent myself, you know, if you do not talk to someone about their child exactly the right way, very defensive. So as a parent, I know how if there's a problem with my son or daughter, how I'd want a teacher to come to me. So definitely a great experience to be able to, you know, talk to a parent how I would like to be talked to as a parent. I thought it compared well to the classroom because you do have students trying to get on their cell phones, students trying to be distractions to other students. The iPads was a big thing. And you have to pick your battles. You know, if one student is not paying attention, but he's not distracting the rest, you have to say, you know, do I want to stop and distract the rest of my class to get this one student on task, depending on how big of a distraction he was. So it was definitely, and it was also great to see other teachers practicing. You know, you're sitting there and you're able to see what they're doing and see if you can pick up anything that you can come back. And another big thing is, like she said, was reflecting on what I do every day. You know, immediately when I was done with the teaching session on the drive home, I'm thinking, this is what I would, if I had to do that again, I would do this and this and this, and how I want to take this into my classroom every day.
And I think that piece of it was just invaluable, the reflection piece. We did we had the opportunity to have the parent conferences, but that wasn't until later in the spring. And so I'm so hopeful that we receive the grant again, because that is one of the first things I would do next year with beginning teachers, is have the opportunity to practice teacher-parent conferences. So overall, I think it's been wonderful. It's been exciting, something totally different, out of the box. I did mention earlier it was for lateral entries, but we did have, they weren't all lateral entries that participated, the majority were. So we are hopeful, and I hope I can come back and let you know next year that we received the grant again and we are rolling right along. So do you have any questions? Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms.
Happy
Hazel.
summer.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you, John.
Next item is some North Carolina School Boards Association policy revisions.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Williams.
Sargent. Thank you, Mr. Sargent. Submitted for your consideration, your review for board study this month, with hopefully action to be taken at a subsequent meeting, is the attached list of policy revisions from our subscription with the North Carolina School Boards Association.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Williams at this point? Pursuant to our policy, these are just being offered as a first reading for our review, and they will come on as an action item at our next meeting. Very well, we'll move to the next item, which is the application for CTE state and federal funding. Ms. Jones.
Good evening again. I've provided you with the draft of the 2018-19 application for state federal funding of the Career Technical Education Program. This application has been submitted to DPI, and it must be submitted with your signature and approval in order to receive and use state and federal funds for CTE programs and services. These programs include PRC 13, which is personnel, PRC 14, which is our state funding, and PRC 17, which is our federal funding. Successful applications will yield approximately $2.9 million. The local plan and the LCPS technical attainment plan are attached for your review. The technical attainment plan is part of the application, and I will seek approval for the application at the next school board meeting. Any questions?
Very well, any questions for Ms. Jones at this point? You have been busy, thank you.
It's a long document, but it's very good read. So, thank you.
64 pages to be exact.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to Mr. Adams and the financial report.
Good evening, board members. Prepared for your review is the May financial report. The report details or summarizes budget and expenditure information for all fund sources as of May 31st. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Adams tonight? Nope, having no questions, we'll assume in the order you have it here, do we want to take up that first action item, or do we want to do the budget amendment first?
We can do the budget amendment that way.
Let's go ahead and, while Mr. Adams is here, we'll move on to the action portion of our agenda. I guess this is our first budget amendment, as well as our interim budget resolution.
Yes, sir. Thank you. First, the 17-18 budget amendment. This is budget amendment number 4. It's used to amend the state public school fund, federal grants funds, as well as capital outlay fund. There is one modification on the budget amendment in section 6 that states the superintendent is further authorized to adjust appropriation levels of a fund subject to its ratification by the Board of Education at its next regularly scheduled meeting. That's been put in place in order to avoid the late June meeting. So any adjustments that come.
So our proposed meeting is July 2nd, the Monday, July 2nd.
So if he wants to make changes at the end of June,
And
we can
that's the
simply
same thing you
ratify them in
normally
July.
approve at the
That's
end of
correct.
June. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the budget amendment?
So moved.
Is that Mr. Smith?
Mr. Davis.
And Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis, motion to approve the budget amendment. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll give that second to Mr. Smith. Any further discussion on the budget amendment as presented? And we'll call for a vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. It is approved.
Thank you.
Move on to the interim budget resolution. Mr. Adams.
Yes, sir. The 18-19 interim budget is prepared in order to continue fiscal operations beginning July 1, 2018, until an approved budget resolution is passed. The interim budget is based on 1/4 of the 17-18 budget and will carry us through approximately the first 3 months of the year. However, with the time frame that our state budget is being passed, we fully anticipate having our full budget resolution at the July meeting.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the interim budget resolution?
Motion to approve the 2018-19 interim budget resolution as presented.
All right. Motion by Mr. Hill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. King with a second. Any further discussion on the interim budget resolution as presented? I'll call for a vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. It is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Next item is the board meeting dates. Well, do we want to go back to the nomination? Let's go back to the first item on the action agenda, the LCC board nomination. And there is one position. The board typically, we're able to appoint members to the board of Lenore Community College. We do this periodically. I think we have 3 members altogether that we appoint on that board by law. There have been 3 nominations that have been presented to the Personnel Committee. The Personnel Committee has decided to leave those 3 nominations in place for the board for us to approve one of those tonight. My suggestion on the nominations is that, well, and procedurally, we have to entertain a motion. A motion would be to approve one nominee. And if the motion receives a second, then we would take a vote. If that nominee gets 4 votes of the board, they would become our nominee, and the process would stop at that point. So what I would suggest is that as we go through these the first time, you may want to vote for your number 1 choice and not vote for multiple choices if you really want your number 1 choice. If we get through all 3 and none of them have gotten 4 votes, then we will go back and entertain motions again, and perhaps some of the votes will change once we see how many votes each individual has the first time through. But we'll open it up for discussion at this point.
Are you saying that the initial nomination requires a second?
It does.
Okay.
It is a motion and a second. If it doesn't get a second, then the motion does not go forward.
The nomination requires a
The
second.
nomination does not go forward at that point.
I nominate Maxine Cooper.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion to nominate Maxine Cooper. We have a second by Mr. Smith. Any discussion on Ms. Cooper? And just for the purposes of the public, we've all been provided with a bio on each item, each person, and the bios are posted on the website, so they're certainly public record that anybody could look at. Any discussion about Ms. Cooper? Then we'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion to appoint Maxine Cooper, raise your right hand. That is 4 votes. So Maxine Cooper, I'm sorry, 5 votes. You're a little slow, Bruce. That is 5 votes. So Maxine Cooper will be our nominee to the Lenore Community College Board.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to share with all here that Ms. Cooper will be replacing Mr. Herman Caraway, who has served for over 20 years in that capacity, a distinguished educator, retired leader from our school system. And we certainly like to thank Mr. Caraway. I'll be inviting him to our next board meeting so that we can recognize him publicly for his service.
Absolutely. We do thank Mr. Caraway for his service. And that concludes that action item. All right, we'll move back to the board meeting dates for 2018-2019. Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sargent. Thank you. We have submitted for you the proposed meeting dates for the upcoming school year, starting July 1st and for your consideration and approval. What we've tried to do, you'll notice that we've gone through and you see the explanations in there, and we've tried to eliminate some of we had some mid-year changes this year, as we do every year, because of conferences that board members are attending. And we've been in contact with many of you to ask if you, in advance, if you intend to attend those conferences in the fall and in the spring, to eliminate the need to reschedule during the school year. And we've tried to get a good read from you on that, and we've done so, and tried to work around conflicts and everything else. So it's submitted for your consideration and approval.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the board meeting dates for 2018, 2019?
Move to approve the board meeting dates for 2018-19 as presented.
Okay, motion by Mr. Smith. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Davis. Any further discussion on the board meeting dates? And we'll call for a vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, they are approved. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next item is surplus items. Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For your viewing pleasure tonight, the Media and Technology Department has submitted items to be considered as surplus. They are old iPads and iPods from before the implementation of the one-to-one initiative. These devices are 7 to 9 years old and will not run our current programs. Also, we have submitted iPod carts that are no longer used.
Mr. Chair, if I may also point out that action item, the next action item on our list, which is the sale of putting up for auction the house from the high school, that also needs to be declared surplus, so we can roll that into the same motion if you like.
Okay. Very well. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Harvey on the surplus property? I don't think you're ever getting those cords untangled. Just looking at them. Do we have a motion? We'll entertain a motion to approve the surplus properties, surplus items presented by Mr. Harvey, as well as the residential building at South Lenore High School.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mr. Anderson. We have a second? Second by Mr. Davis. Any further discussion on the motion? Then we'll call for a vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. They are declared surplus and may be disposed of.
Thank you.
So do we need to take any action on the South Lenore property at this point, Ms. Waller?
We just did.
Or did that cover it completely?
No, that's just declaring it surplus. I think now we need to entertain a motion for disposal. Yeah.
Does Ms. Jones, would you like to tell us about that property?
Sure, I'd love to. Carpentry 1, 2, and 3 students at South Lenore High School built a house that is to be auctioned off at the end of the school year. Through the building of the house, students gain valuable hands-on skills that are transferable to the job market. Profit made, if any, goes back into the program to purchase equipment, supplies, and materials. And this is a 1,700 square foot house that the carpentry class has been building throughout this school year. And our Business Advisory Council actually toured it when we were there the other month. It looks very nice.
2 bath, large closet space area. I'm inviting all board members to go down and tour it truly and see the culmination of our classroom efforts, because that's a classroom for our construction technology students. And to see what they've done, it's an impressive house. Mr. Sainaman and I will invite you down at any time to see. Remember, they're in exams this week, but any time after that to see the house and get a private tour.
We are still waiting on the countertops for the kitchen, but they should be here very soon.
Do we have a motion to approve the resolution to sell the South Lenore High School residential building?
So moved.
All right, motion by Mr. Anderson. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Mr. Woods. Any further discussion? We'll call for a vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. It is approved.
Okay, thank you.
And thanks to the South Lenore carpentry classes for their hard work.
Thank you.
We'll now entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I move that Lenore County Board of Education go into closed session under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 to prevent disclosure of confidential personnel files, to consult the board's attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to consider matters relating to initial employment of an individual employee.
All right, motion by Mr. Hill. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Davis. All in favor going into closed session? We are now in closed session. Thank you very much. We're now back in open session. We will entertain a motion to approve the personnel report and the addendum as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself from this personnel report. I have family members on the personnel report.
All right, let the record reflect Mr. Hill's recused himself from this vote. Do we have a motion? Is it?
Move to approve the amended personnel report with the addendum.
All right, motion by Mr. Smith. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Woods. All in favor, raise your right hand. It is approved. We have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All right, motion by Mr. Anderson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davis. All in favor of adjournment? We are now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.